Starting us off in at number 10, the Badger. Let's begin our list with one of the more obscure heroes to appear on our countdown today. We are talking Norbert Sykes, aka the Badger. Oh friends, it only gets worse from here. So our buddy Norbert is a Vietnam vet who was initially published by the very short-lived Capital Comics. His rights then went to a publisher called First Comics, and then after the 90s he was released by Dark Horse, Image, and IDW. So yeah, he's been around a lot. Wonder why. First appearing in a self-titled comic, Badger issue 1 in 1983, this is a character who is an expert martial artist. And, this is the best part, he can talk to animals. So, how did he get that power? Well, we should probably preface this by noting that he has multiple personality disorder, because one of his personalities believed he could talk to animals, and that personality referred to itself as the Badger. Oh, and it's also worth noting that this persona of his believed he saw God appear as a badger to him. Yeah, like I said, gets worse. Norbert escapes the mental asylum that he's in and becomes a vigilante based off of this. He's also got a ton of other personalities too, including a dog, a 9-year-old girl, a playboy, and an inner city black kid. So not only is this absurd, it's also a little bit offensive too. Now, it wasn't even the Silver Age, you guys. Well, actually, the more racially offensive age was the Golden Age. But. Up next, number 9, Defensor. The Defensor is another slightly obscure character, and he has a very obscure origin story to boot. Defensor first appeared in Marvel's Superhero Contest of Champions issue 1 in 1982. Before becoming a vigilante, he was a construction worker named Gabriel Carlo Dantes Sepulveda, which I hope I'm pronouncing correctly. Gabriel found an underground passageway that he snuck into after his superiors at his job had gone home for the day. They had previously told him to ignore his discovery. Super stubborn though, he entered and found that the cavern contained a suit of vibranium armor connected to an unknown machine. So what did Gabriel do? Well, he put it on, of course. And as soon as he did, things went to hell. He was attacked by a group of creatures, and he fought his way back to the surface, and thus began his vigilante career. His death happened off-panel in 1995, being reported in Captain America issue 442, so clearly wasn't all that important. Makes sense why he's obscure. Coming in at our next spot at number 8, Elongated Man. Ralph Dibny may be a more respected B-tier superhero these days, but that is not something you'd assume based solely off of his origin story. How did he become a superhero? He drank soda. Not even kidding here. Dibny, a young regular dude who just so happened to be obsessed with circus performers, wanted to be like the contortionists and acrobats that he so dearly admired. So he did his research and asked around, and turns out the particular performers he questioned claimed that they drank a particular kind of carbonated beverage that helped them stay in top form. That soda was a drink called Gingold. So what does our pal Ralph do? Well, he went out and bought as much Gingold as he could get his non-powered hands on, and he drank it. A lot of it. Like an unsafe amount of it. And surprise surprise, it actually worked, but gave him more than he bargained for. He had gained stretchy powers capable of elongating his body in any which way. Now you're probably thinking this story has some obvious plot holes, right? Can anyone drink a bunch of pop and be granted superpowers? Definitely not. Really, he's lucky that he didn't gain a massive amount of cavities instead.
Number 7, Monkey Business. We go now to Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen, Volume 1, Issue 116 to be exact. This issue came out in 1968 and I don't think we'll ever see this on the big screen. I hope so, because if we do, I'm walking out of that big screen. The cover alone is enough. It shows Superman flying, saying, "Jimmy, what's got into you? Why are you acting like an ape?" And then the actual ape on the cover is like, because he's an ape, Superman, yeah, I'm the real Jimmy Olsen. We switched bodies. Yeah, they switched bodies. Apes are so strong also. Like, have you seen Planet of the Apes? Caesar just like rocks dudes off of buildings like it's no problem. There's no way he would be holding a camera. That camera would explode in his hands in a matter of seconds. Like, they're so strong. So after a malfunction of a machine, yep, they ended up switching bodies. So Jimmy Olsen's body starts, of course, literally screaming like an ape because the ape is stuck inside. And the real Jimmy Olsen, he's stuck in an ape body, and the dude, he just embraces it. He buys a green suit, he even has a cool hat to go along with it, and he continues working. Like, what a champ. He even says he'll be a simian sensation. The guy loves it. Editors, insert link. So of course somebody walks into the office and they're like, "Holy shit, there's a gorilla. We have to call the zoo guards right now. This can't be in here." And then Jimmy responds with puns. He's like, "Holy cow, I guess I'll have to explain what this monkey business is all about." Like they're gonna be like, "Ha, good one, Jimmy." No, like that happened in real life. That dude would be put to sleep with a dart so fast.
Up next at 6, Green Arrow. Green Arrow's initial origin story is so bad because it's laughable, and that's because it is literally a ripoff of another one of DC's more popular characters, Batman. First appearing in More Fun Comics issue 73 from 1941, DC was clearly trying to capitalize on the success of their Caped Crusader Batman by creating a similar hero. This hero was Oliver Queen. Queen was an orphan. Queen had a traumatic experience that inspired him to fight crime. Queen was a millionaire philanthropist playboy. Queen had an arrow cave and an arrow car and even a young ward. Spot the difference yet? Well, apparently Queen found himself on a deserted island one day and taught himself how to be an expert archer. This is literally the only difference between him and Bruce Wayne when you put it out on paper. Like Batman, but more Robin Hood. Luckily, Queen had become a more independent character in terms of his identity later on, having had a major overhaul and a neat little retcon in the 60s that mixed up his ideologies, ditched his millionaire background, and turned him into a liberal man fighting for the people. And at number 5, Doctor Strange strangled by his cape. For this number, we're diving into an alternate universe in the Marvel multiverse, the Ultimate Universe, Earth 1610. This universe is categorized by significantly grittier versions of our beloved 616 heroes, and during the penultimate event in that universe, Ultimatum, many a hero and villain experience particularly brutal demises, including Dr. Stephen Strange. While fighting against Dormammu, Strange is killed in one of the most absurd ways, by his own cloak. It's a move that's never been pulled by the ruler of the Dark Dimension in the regular 616, but in the Ultimate Universe it's something that surprisingly worked. Strange is strangled by his cloak, turning his face purple until his head explodes due to all of his blood being squeezed up into his head. Needless to say, it was pretty darn gruesome. In our number 4 spot, SHANNA the She-Devil. SHANNA first appeared in a self-titled comic book in 1972. She is a well-trained veterinarian, an Olympic-level athlete, experienced in combat, and has extraordinary agility. She's also a highly sexually objectified character, but that is not why she landed on this list. SHANNA witnessed the death of her mother. Her father murdered her mother. Yikes. She then moved from her home in Africa and came to the US to become an Olympic level athlete and a vet who specialized in raising leopard cubs. Here's where it gets really random. One of the cubs that she was raising was shot at by a zoo guard, and feeling the need to protect wildlife better, she moved back to Africa to fight poachers. That's it. It's kind of boring. Cool story. I can tell it again if you'd like.
Number 3, Superman vs. Muhammad Ali. You gotta love it. This one-shot made its debut back in 1978, written by Dennis O'Neil and Neil Adams. It featured the Man of Steel and, of course, Muhammad Ali. So what's going on? How is this a real thing? Well, it was part of an all-new collector's edition numbered C56. So basically, this alien named Ratlar, who is part of a species known as the Scrub, visits Earth and demands that we pick our best fighter to go against theirs. Nice. So their best fighter being a behemoth named Hunya, and if we refuse, well, the Scrub is just going to destroy the planet. So Muhammad Ali argues that since Superman isn't technically from Earth, he must be the one who fights. So Ratlar is amused by this, so he wants to know who's the best. So he pins up the two champs against each other, Superman versus Muhammad Ali. Now of course you're thinking Superman would toast this guy, hands down, no competition. Well, the fight is set to take place on Bodace, which is orbiting a red star, so that means there's no powers for Superman. So Muhammad Ali trains Superman to become a boxer, like a human boxer, and cue the Rocky Balboa music. So they start training in Superman's Fortress of Solitude, throwing proper left hooks, you know, the whole thing. Might as well train without powers, right? So the unlikely duo are given 24 hours to train, which is just unreasonable. But by using a time warping device, they're able to train for a couple of months. Ratlar figures out the device is being used and boom, training is over, boys, nice try. So the fight is broadcasted intergalactically and thousands tune in naturally. I mean, Superman puts up a good fight, but ultimately Ali is the greatest boxer to ever live. So Supes goes down. And now Ali has to fight Hunya, even predicting which round he'll go down by. Now of course Ali doesn't hold up too well against an alien at first, but he eventually knocks him out of the ring in the 4th round, just as he said. Take that, bucko. Boom!
Moving on to something even more ridiculous, in at number 2, Firebrand. The Firebrand mantle has been held by 2 individuals, siblings Rod and Danette Riley. Rod Riley was a bored, wealthy socialite who decided he would fight crime alongside his manservant, donning a very flamboyant costume that consisted of a transparent shirt and tight red pants. Now aside from being a bit of a latent queer superhero, Rod was pretty damn racist. His story had eventually been retconned, making him present at Pearl Harbor during its attack in World War II. So I guess it's justified racism? Ew. No thanks. Danette, after finding out her brother was Firebrand, would state, I quote, "What a confirmed bachelor playboy like my brother needed with a bodyguard, I never understood. And even better, from the looks of these clothes, I didn't know my brother quite well as I thought I did." In other words, sweetie, your brother's gay. Speaking of, her origin was a bit more absurd than her brother's. She was studying volcanoes north of Hawaii in the 40s when she was kidnapped by a sorcerer named Wotan. When she tried to escape, Wotan hit her with a magical blast that knocked her into a pit of lava, which then gave her the power to control heat and shoot fire blasts. Which, you know, seems a little absurd because if one was to be thrown into a pit of lava, you would die pretty quickly. Wouldn't be fun. But there is magic involved, so it's fine. And finally, in our number 1 spot, the WHIZZER. The WHIZZER, aka Robert Frank, is the product of the Golden Age, having initially been published by Marvel's predecessor, Timely Comics. First debuting in US Comics issue 1 in 1941, the WHIZZER not only has a silly name, his origin story is almost baffling. It's that bad. Born in St. Louis, Missouri, Robert Frank was a fellow who went on a trip to Africa with his father. That was where he was bitten by a cobra. An almost fatal bite, his father saved him at the last minute with a blood transfusion from a mongoose. Why? Apparently to counteract the poison. But because of this, Robert was given super speed abilities. Later on, writers tried to make more sense of this by saying that the mongoose blood actually triggered latent metahuman abilities. Yeah. Sure, right. That makes way more sense. Totally. And that's why he fell into obscurity. Number 10, oil needed. Iron Man. Back in Iron Man's early days, his suits weren't up to par with what we're familiar with today. In Avengers issue 2, right after the team's inaugural issue, the group fights Space Phantom, who intends on invading Earth with an alien force. Phantom comes to the planet first and ends up impersonating members of the Avengers team, which causes a lot of confusion and fighting within the team. The group has caught on to Space Phantom's shtick, and Thor incapacitates him by using his weather manipulation abilities to create a rainstorm that causes Iron Man's suit to rust over. Now, to be fair, it was Space Phantom impersonating Tony Stark here, and technically he was the one to suffer the loss. But considering that he was mimicking the hero, that's a pretty bad design flaw to bring to light. Needless to say, we're glad that Tony caught on to that before any real damage occurred to the beloved hero. Up next, number 9, Batwoman as a plot device. Always a shame when a superhero, especially a female superhero, is used merely as a plot device to further the story of another character, usually a male. It's really the basis of the women in refrigerators argument. Don't know it? Google it. You should. Anyway, this was the case with the initial Batwoman Kathy Kane. While the modern day Batwoman Kate Kane has gone above and beyond her former iteration, back in the day when she was created in 1956 as a means to give Batman a Batman family in the aftermath of the Comics Code Authority, and claims that Batman and Robin were gay, she was literally a fluff heroine whose utility belt included devices disguised as lipstick and compact mirrors. Yeah. When Detective Comics issue 485 came around in 1979, Kathy Kane was killed off unceremoniously, with the League of Assassins brutally murdering her. The whole story was a plot device for Batman to have a reason to go after the League of Assassins. Yikes. Moving on to number 8, Hank Pym and PYMTRON. Oh, this one is sad. Hank Pym has one of the most ridiculous histories as far as Marvel characters are concerned. He has been through a lot. But most recently, we witnessed a whole new humiliating saga for Henry Pym in which he physically merged with Ultron, the robot he created in the comics that became one of the most memorable Avengers foes. During the Infinity Countdown story arc, Ultron managed to steal the Soul Gem, and a fragment of Hank's soul ended up trapped within the Stone Soul world. Now at the time the two had merged, but really it was just kind of Ultron wearing Hank's skin. While Hank was in there, he experienced an idyllic fantasy in which the Avengers had saved him and he was home reunited with his friends. In reality, a demon, the all-consuming Devondra, was busy consuming his soul. We haven't heard from him since. And it's been a little while and he might be gone forever, but probably not because comics. But even then, he'll probably be brought back and something horrible will happen to him. It's the Hank Pym way. And at number 7, we have Black Condor. There have been 3 Black Condors over the years, and all 3 haven't had great origin stories, but let's specifically look at the first, Richard Grey Jr. First appearing in Crack Comics issue 1 in 1940, Grey got his powers thanks to nuclear exposure from a radioactive meteor. Despite this, he personally believed that this wasn't actually the reason he had gotten powers. This is because he believed he was capable of flight because he had been raised as an orphan by a flock of wild condor birds in the wild. In the wilderness. Which, yes, is very, very dumb. When he did return to civilized society, he just happened upon the dead body of a senator named Thomas Wright. So he stole his identity because they shared an uncanny resemblance. How convenient. And yes, he led a double life as a senator while operating as a crime fighter. Yeah, you can see why this character has had so many different iterations. Although they never, quite got it right. And at 6, Batman punches a different Green Lantern. Long before Hal Jordan smashed his fist into the world's greatest detective's chin, Batman was on the giving end of a similar interaction. This time it was between the Caped Crusader and another Green Lantern, Guy Gardner, who is arguably the least like Green Lantern out there. 'Cause he's a bit of a dick. Anyway, this went down in the Justice League issue 5 with Batman being fed up of Guy's insufferable attitude. Batman was the one in charge of the Justice League International team and Guy was just whining all the time. Guy makes it clear that he thinks Batman shouldn't be the leader of the team, and he's constantly sulking and complaining about how he should be the one in charge instead. So what does Bats do in order to establish his dominance? Well, he knocks Guy out with one punch in front of the rest of the team. Regardless of socking Guy in the face, Batman is still all business, getting a team meeting underway as Guy lies unconscious on the floor. The best part is the reactions from the rest of the team.
Number 5. The Suicide Snare. This issue was released with Action Comics Volume 1, issue number 592, back in 1987. The cover of the issue, first of all, is enough to draw you in. It shows Superman with Big Barda, with her. They're making out, and who's in the background? Mr. Miracle, just watching the whole thing. He even says the line, "Superman and my wife?" Those lines are laid across the cover, so what's going on? Well, Mr. Miracle goes home one day to find Darkseid just chilling on his couch. Immediately asking where Barda is, Darkseid gives him a tape to play, which may be the scariest moment of my life. If Darkseid was like, "Here's a tape," I'd be like, "No, I don't have a tape player. What did you do? What did you do? Oh god, it's gonna be so bad." So he clicks play and sees Big Barda dancing for sleaze. They don't show it, but it's implied that it's sexual in nature. I don't know why I did that. So Sleaze takes mind control Barda and Superman to an adult film director. Yeah, his name is even Grossman. Grossman. His idea is that the adult film is going to make so much money that basically it can pay for an army to go against Darkseid, which is worth a shot. So in comes Mr. Miracle to save the day, releasing the two from Sleaze's mind control. Whew, that would have been a real awkward brunch if Mr. Miracle didn't show up. Quite the miracle if you ask me.
Up next, number 4, Beast Boy and the drugged envelope. The Judas Contract is by far one of the most memorable Teen Titans stories in the group's history. During this story arc, a metahuman the name of Terra joins up with the Titans. Her and Beast Boy, aka Changeling, which is what he was going by at the time, developed a bit of a romantic relationship. It's then revealed that Terra has been playing the Titans all along, and is in cahoots with one of their biggest foes, Deathstroke. During the story's climax, the sinister duo uses various methods to subdue the Titans, one of which is really embarrassing for Beast Boy. They take advantage of his vanity, sending him dozens of letters with requests for autographs from fangirls. Gar is super into this, and he gets straight to work signing pictures and licking envelopes. But turns out the glue on the envelopes has been drugged. As he realizes what's happened, he is knocked out cold. Up next, coming in our number 3 spot, we have Bouncing Boy. Oh, Bouncing Boy. Bouncing Boy is by far one of the silliest superheroes out there. He is a boy who has the power to inflate like a giant ball, and of course, bounce around. It also gives him a certain extent of invulnerability, to be fair. He first appeared in Action Comics issue 276 in 1961, and he was a part of the Legion of Superheroes. Bouncing Boy, aka Chuck Tane, is largely thought to be a character created by Jerry Siegel as a means of reflecting Siegel's interest in comedy and a desire to have a vehicle for humor on that team. So how did Chuck get his powers? Well, he was not born with them. And silly enough, he is the second individual on our list to gain powers from a beverage. No word of a lie, Chuck thought he was gulping down a delicious soda when in fact he had just consumed a super plastic formula, whatever that is. He was first rejected by the Legion, but after defeating a robber, he was accepted onto the team's roster and became the Legion's self-appointed, I quote, morale officer. Morale officer? Morale, inspirer would make sense, but to be an officer is kind of seems like he's bouncing around being like, be happy, you know? Up next, number 2, Wonder Woman and men. In Wonder Woman's earlier days, she had to endure a handful of stories in which her feminist prowess was shut down by silly plot devices. Like this one. According to the Amazonian law in the Golden Age, if a man ever binded Wonder Woman's bracelets together, she would lose her powers. Seems kind of counterintuitive to her character, doesn't it? Part of this was because of her creator William M. Marston's BDSM background and influence on Wonder Woman's characters. Case in point, when this occurred, Wonder Woman has a thought bubble that reads, "When an Amazon girl permits a man to chain her bracelets of submission together, she becomes weak as other women in a man-ruled world." For f***ing sake. I mean, yes, it was the 40s after all. We're just glad this silly stipulation has been retconned out of existence. Last but not least, in our number 1 spot, Deathstroke kicks the JLA's butts. This is arguably the Justice League of America's most embarrassing failure. Potentially. In the Identity Crisis storyline, Elongated Man's wife, Sue Dibney, is murdered, with Dr. Light presumed to be the murderer. Over the course of the story, it becomes apparent that members of the Justice League have been in on a whole controversial mind-wipe scheme that individuals like Batman were not privy to. It's a whole lot of moral grayness, and the way Sue's rape at the hands of Dr. Light was approached is something that the story gets a lot of heat for. Spoiler alert, the JLA's response was to mind-wipe everyone who was involved. Batman was also mind-wiped in order to prevent him from making everyone take the moral high ground. Anyway, that's all context. Dr. Light, who had been mind-wiped into a literal buffoon, hired Deathstroke Slade Wilson to help protect himself from the JLA. Deathstroke takes on Green Arrow, The Flash, Zatanna, Elongated Man, Hawkman, the Atom, and Black Canary. And guess what? Deathstroke won.
Number 10. Pink Elephants. Now of course I have to start off with one of the most wild issues. It's titled Pink Elephants. It's issue 212 of Green Lantern Corps, but don't let the name fool you, there's no weird elephant stuff in this one per se. So we have Hal Jordan, and he's being eyed down by Aricia Rabb. See, the only thing is, Aricia is only 13 years old. Young love, classic. Way too young though, way too young. Hal Jordan is of course not 13. So she uses her power ring to make herself appear older, but it's still not okay, you know? That's like 13 going on 30, but Hal Jordan knows that it's actually her and she's making herself look older. That's gross, that's super gross, and also super illegal. Ayo, Aricia's like, oh, I love you because you're the most handsomest man I've ever met, and because you treated me as a real Green Lantern even though I was so young, and because you couldn't keep from calling me honey. And even Hal Jordan's like, oh, okay, I didn't say, let's stop there, let's just chill. Don't say it out loud, please. Gross. Even saying it out loud here is just, yuck. Number 9, Bat Baby. Issue 147 of Batman has one of the funniest lines on a comic book title page ever. So we have Robin, just regular old Robin, and a baby sporting the mask and the cowl, and the businessman on the cover is like, look out, it's Bat Baby and Robin. Like, I love the stutter that he does too. He's like, look out, it's Bat Baby. Like, he's kind of like has to take a second to realize what he's looking at, which is kind of like us too. We're looking at the thing like, it's a Bat Baby, I guess. Yeah, debit, let's do it. And the weirdest part is, he still has the abilities of a full-grown Batman. So Batman and Robin get up close to Nails Finney and his gang, and then Batman sees Garth, the renegade scientist. Garth! Turns out Nails brought them into a trap, and now Batman has shrunk down to the size of a small child. Very small. The headlines were amazing in the news that week. Gangland turns Batman into baby, and the photo is just Batman all moody, like, it's the best. Robin at one point even has to carry Batman to the Batmobile. So what does Batman do? He embraces it. He's like, fine, I'll dress like a baby, I'll become Bat Baby, let's do it. He does well though, or he does okay rather. One of the headlines that you see next reads, Bat Baby does okay for a kid. That's it? Just okay? Like, I mean, he's okay. He just rode a balloon up in the air like 40 feet and then fought off 3 crooks, but he did okay. For a kid. He was okay for a kid. Yeah, he had to ride a balloon because his legs were so small. That's the sound I make when I'm trying to run fast. I don't think we'll ever get this comic on the big screen, but who knows? I mean, we got Scott Lang as a baby in the last Avengers. Maybe DC will really go for it and have a Bat Baby make a brief cameo. We're hoping. And number 8, Bat Witch. This one's a classic. Released in 1969, issue 186 of The World's Finest, we find Batman in a bit of an odd situation. So, Superman and Batman at this point have traveled back in time to solve a mystery of a broken bust that resembled Batman. They're like, alright, let's go back in time, figure this out. So they go back and they rescue a lady named Sylvia Ward. Now Sylvia was actually accused of witchcraft, and she's in trouble. So Superman helps her stay afloat, and then Batman swims beside her to shore, right? What a good team. Two nice guys, classic. And then she thanks Batman by kissing him right on the lips. Ooh-wee. And then Superman goes to introduce himself, and then Batman interrupts and takes her to the local bar. Oh shit. So Superman decides to use this era in his favor. So he dresses up as Batman and starts like floating around and doing like all like this crazy witch stuff. So much so that the town deems him a witch. So Batman is about to be burned at the stake. He's got like his hands and his head, he's stuck in the whole scenario. And then a thunderstorm rolls in and everyone's like, ah, is it raining? Can't be doing any of that. And then they leave. They don't want to see a guy dressed like a bat like get killed. They think he's a witch, but they're like, you know what? I didn't bring my umbrella, so can't do it this time. Next time. We'll get on next time. Let's head out. Everybody leaves except for, you guessed it, Ben Franklin. Yeah, he was there. He actually tried to help free Batman with one of his experiments, you know? But Superman doesn't let that happen. He puts his hand in and stops the electricity. So Ben Franklin thought that he could use electricity to like blast open the shackles. Not today, not with Supes involved. Eventually Ben Franklin's like, all right, you're on your own. I don't know what's going on here. And then when Batman asks Superman why he's doing this, Superman says, figure it out yourself. So next time your friends start flirting with your crush, just frame them for witchcraft. It'll work, trust me.
Up next, number 7, Batman punched by Hal Jordan. Batman has long disliked members of the Green Lantern Corps. It took him a very long time to be willing to trust Hal Jordan after he had become Parallax in the Emerald Twilight storyline. While Hal was possessed by the villain, he ended up going on a rampage and killing several Lanterns and Guardians. And we all know how Bruce has major trust issues. In Green Lantern Rebirth issue 6, Hal has had enough with Batman's resentment and open hostility. Hal felt he had paid his dues. He sacrificed himself to reignite the sun after he was resurrected, and he's been working real hard to prove to everyone that he is one of the good guys. Batman doesn't entirely buy it, so what does Hal do? Well, he punches him in front of a bunch of other Green Lanterns. But to be fair, Batman kinda had it coming. He's long been an to not just Hal Jordan, but to other Green Lanterns in the past. Which actually brings us to our next number.
Number 6, Orca the Whale Woman. Imagine if when Robert Pattinson's Batman came out, this was the story that we got. I would laugh so hard. So we go now to Batman issue 579. So imagine you're on a yacht, you're just chilling, right? You're hanging with your friends, having some drinks, feeling good, looking good, showing off your fancy $6 million necklace, and then bam, a whale woman just blasts into frame and rips it away. She's like, don't let her, give me that necklace. Like, first of all, so scared. Bruce is shocked. He's like, miss, can you please return that gem to its rightful owner? That'd be great, thanks. And of course the whale doesn't cooperate, so Bruce heads to the Gotham Aquarium to ask some questions. He meets Grace Baleen, who is a woman bound to a wheelchair who works at the aquarium. She gives the whole rundown on orcas and how they fight other whales that are 3 times the size of them, and how she's working on this research project with orcas, but the funding, of course, is not going well. So you probably figured out what's going on by this point. She spends her time robbing from the rich, and instead of keeping that wealth for herself, she donates it to charities. Not a bad idea. She ends up becoming an orca forever, but that doesn't last long, don't worry. She's killed by an operation ran by the Great White Shark in Detective Comics issue 819. A lot of sea drama in that one. Under the sea, we have a lot of murder, under the sea. No dancing crab choreography included.
Let's move on to another iconic DC character in at number 5, Catwoman. Oh yes, an iconic character the caliber of Catwoman can be victimized by a terribly wacky origin story just like any other hero. Selina Kyle first hit the scene in the early days of the Golden Age, appearing in Batman issue 1 from 1940, but she hadn't fully come into her own yet. During her debut, she was merely an expert thief who made use of disguises that made her appear like an innocent elderly woman. But how did she enter this glamorous life of crime and jewel thievery? Well, once upon a time, she was a flight attendant, and during one fateful flight, the plane she was working on crashed. She suffered from amnesia as a result, and upon waking, what did she do? She decided that she should start a life of crime. That's a completely rational idea, right? Yeah. Let's just be criminals. As for the whole cat part of her persona, she chose to adopt the mantle of the cat. She wouldn't be called Catwoman until later on, all due to her daddy dearest having owned a pet store in the past. As you can imagine, DC being the king of reboots and retcons eventually retconned this origin and replaced it with a brand new one in the 1980s after the character had made a comeback in the Silver Age.
Number 4. Super Lion. This 1958 Actions comic grabbed readers' attention in the 243rd issue when the title page showed Superman as a lion, and the headline was "The Lady and the Lion." So you have to open it, you just have to. So after Superman uses his telescopic vision, he sees trouble. Trouble in the form of a young lady on a Mediterranean island in danger during an earthquake. So Superman flies over and saves the day. He soon realizes by the rubble that this is the Temple of Cirque. So it wasn't actually Cirque, it was the next rendition of Cirque. And she ends up making him consume this potion while demanding him to marry her. Nice pitch, not bad. If you do not come back to me for the antidote before the next dawn, she continues, you will turn into the creature you most resemble by nature. See, if that was me, I'd turn into like a toad or like a little turtle or something. Something just kind of like, you know, something not the best. So as fate has it, Superman becomes a lion. Yeah, his lion's heart and strength made him do the whole spiel. It could be a lot worse though. I mean, the Man of Steel ends up working at the zoo and he ends up playing with people. Like, he has a pretty good time. Really dumb concept or best idea ever? I don't know, I'm kind of in the middle. Let us know in the comments. Would you see this in theaters? Superman as a lion, just like putting people's heads in his mouth? Let us know, I kind of would.
Number 3, Wasp, and that time that she fell out of a tree. Yes, this is actually a thing that happened. And yes, you probably guessed it, it happened during the Silver Age, when comics were at their wackiest. This case in particular featured Avengers member Wasp, who had escaped conflict in an exhausted state, seeking out the rest of the team in aid, because apparently back in the early days of the Avengers she wasn't overly useful. In the process, when shrunken down, she's almost eaten by a hungry little bird. But after growing in size, the tree branch that she was perched on snaps, and she falls to the ground, unable to shrink down in time to save herself. So she lands on the ground and is knocked unconscious. Perhaps my favorite part of these panels is the very end, where the final panel reads, "But now we must leave the fallen Avenger as she lies silent and still in the lonely glen, for there are other urgent matters which concern us." God, jeez. Clearly even the writers didn't care about Wasp back then. Kinda harsh, guys.
Number 2. Ants. Yeah, Ants. Coming at you from Action Comic Volume 1, Issue 296, The Invasion of Ants. It's as dumb as it sounds, or maybe brilliant, I can't tell. The cover alone is super weird and kind of inviting. It shows Superman on the side of a building, but he's got like an ant's head. So off the bat, I'm pretty curious what the hell's going on. He's even saying the words, "Follow me, soldier ants, buzz buzz buzz. We must capture Lois Lane, buzz buzz, she will be our queen." Okay, you got it, man. So after a colony of giant ants was mutated from a nuclear war on another planet, they decided to come check out Earth. So Superman uses red kryptonite radiation to give himself an ant's head. Not a mask, important to say, like a head. He has an ant's head. He's got an ant's head, guys. And he communicates with them with that head. This is like the ultimate amalgam character. Like, Superman even explains how bad this could get if murder ants roamed the city, as if we didn't already know. It even has a photo of ants like lifting up the Empire State Building and like, so as long as Superman focuses on maintaining an ant's head, he can communicate with it. Similar to how Krypto turned into a collie. If this was a live action movie, people would light the theater on fire. There's no way he's like, buzz, buzz, buzz. Everyone's like, no, I'm leaving. You weren't ready. We're not ready for this. And finally coming in at number 1, the New Guardians. So back in 1988, DC had a short run with one of the best villains ever, Snowflame. So what makes Snowflame so strong and wild is cocaine. This guy even says the words, "Cocaine is my god," on the first page. The New Guardians have trouble. Of course they have trouble. His every cell burns with white hot ecstasy. In his words, not mine. Ram attacks and it doesn't do much. A blow like that would have sent an ordinary man reeling, says Snowflame. Would it be funny if he was like, "A blow like that can't work against a man on blow," and it was like, and just rocked him. Yeah, he even says the more you fight back, the more you fan the fires of my high. This is a real thing. I mean, this could be a live action movie. Just like an old jack dude on coke just boxing the Justice League.